Hi folks, welcome to this video that discusses dividend allocation, specifically allocating dividends when we have cumulative preferred shares. So just a few rules to remember that are related to cumulative preferreds. If they have that cumulative feature, any past year's dividends that didn't get paid must get paid first before the current year dividend. So say for example from last year I owed cumulative preferred shareholders $50,000. If this year I paid $20,000, that $20,000 goes to satisfy part of last year's arrearages or the amounts not yet paid that were owed then. So you're always backfilling or paying the arrears or the amounts unpaid from previous years first once you declare a dividend. Hopefully our example that we're going to show you here will make that clear. Preferred shares are only cumulative if the question says they are. So that feature has to be stated. So only if it says they're cumulative are they in fact cumulative. Otherwise, they're non-cumulative. Now, another misconception I find sometimes when we teach this topic is that dividends are only a liability if they're declared. Now, that's the case whether they're cumulative, non-cumulative, common, doesn't matter. They're common share dividends, doesn't matter. Dividends are only a liability if they're declared. Specifically related to cumulative preferreds, any past dividend payments that are missed on cumulative preferred shares are only liabilities unless you're declaring the amount. So only the amount that's declared on cumulative preferred shares is a liability. And that's what you set up for a liability. So hopefully, again, the question we go through will make that theory clear. So let's look at our question. It says here, Alarco has issued an outstanding 40,000 $6 preferred shares. Now remember, this $6 represents what? It represents your annual per share dividend. So this guy here is what we would call the annual per share dividend. So see if I can just get that in here. Annual per share dividend. That's what this represents. Let's see if we can get a little shape in here. That's what this guy is. That $6 is the annual per share dividend. Okay? And I have 145,000 common shares. Notice I didn't say what the dividend is on those. I don't know and I don't care. I'm more concerned about how much dividend I'm going to pay to my preferred shareholders because what they don't get, the common will get. I also know that the company started their business on January 1, 2011. So what I need to do first is, assuming that the preferred shares are cumulative, figure out how much each year, based on what I've declared, preferred shareholders are getting. Again, these preferred shareholders are holding preferred shares that are cumulative. So how much of a dividend are those preferred shareholders getting, and how much of a dividend are the common shareholders getting? Well, I can see in the first year, I declared $285,000. So how much are the preferred shareholders getting as a dividend? Well, don't forget, their entitlement is what? Their entitlement is $240,000, right? So they're entitled to $240,000. 40,000 cumulative preferred shares times $6 a share. That's the annual per share dividend. So that's going to give them $240,000. So what will the common get? Well, let's have a look at the solution. Again, because the preferred shareholders are entitled each year to $240,000, that's their entitlement. It doesn't mean they'll get it. They only get what's declared, right? So that's their entitlement. Well, you can see if we declared $285,000, we have more than enough to settle their entitlement. They're going to get $240,000. But the common are only going to get what's left of the $285,000. So once the preferred shareholders are paid, they get $240,000 of that $285,000. The other $45,000 goes to common shareholders. So that's their dividend. All right? So now, what happens in 2012? Now we must have had a bad year. We did not declare anywhere near $285,000. We only declared $50,000. Well, guess what? the preferred shareholder entitlement was $240,000, but they're only getting $50,000. So what's happening now? They get that entire $50,000, but now the next time a dividend is declared, the cumulative preferred shareholders are going to get whatever they need to shore up or settle the arrearages. So I've got this little number 2 here because I want you to be able to calculate how much of the preferred share dividend is in arrears at the end of this year, 2012. Well, don't forget that $50,000 was paid, but their entitlement for the year was $240,000. So the arrearages, or the amount that they need to clear off the next time a dividend is declared, is $190,000. Now that $190,000 is not a liability. Why? Because they only declared $50,000. The liability is for $50,000 and they're paying it. So once they pay it, it's no longer a liability. But the $190,000 only becomes a liability once it's declared. That's part of their entitlement for 2012, but they didn't get it. They only get what's declared. So in this case, there wasn't enough to pay $240,000, but at least the preferred shareholders got something, and the common got nothing because there was nothing left. So now 2013 is even worse. We only declared $25,000 in dividends. Well, who's getting that? Only the preferred shareholders. Why? Because this $25,000 is going to pay the back payment of $190,000, which was the arrearage at the end of 2012. So now, how much of the preferred share dividend now, once this $25,000 is paid to the preferred shareholders, how much is in arrears at the end of 2013? Why do we need to know that? Because if a dividend is declared in 2014, and we can see from our question that it is, some or all of that dividend that's declared will have to go to clear up the arrearages, what didn't get paid up to the end of the previous year, 2013. So now that $25,000 is going to pay off the $190,000 in arrears from 2012. So you're always backfilling or paying the outstanding dividend that's been there the longest first. So now that $25,000 is paying off the arrearages from 2012. So now I've got $165,000 in arrears from 2012. But notice this $25,000 dividend didn't pay anything for 2013 entitlement. Didn't pay anything. So I still owe that $240 from this year, right? This year's dividend entitlement for 2013. So my total arrears at the end of 2013 is $165 from 2012 and $240 from 2013. So I now have a dividend entitlement for my preferred shareholders who hold the cumulative preferreds of $405,000. I just got to hope and pray that I'm going to declare enough of a dividend in 2014 to settle that entitlement. And in fact, I did, because we see here in 2014, the dividend that was declared in 2014 here was $690,000. 2014, dividend declared and paid, $690,000. So how much of that $690,000 went to the cumulative preferred shareholders? Let's do a calculation. Well, first of all, you already know that $405,000 of it, that $690,000, first went to pay off the arrearages. So we pay the oldest bucket first. So we got to go back and pick up the back payments of the retro first. So $405,000 of that $690,000 goes to pay the retro. But notice that we still have more than enough to pay the current year 2014 dividend. So of that $690,000, 405 pays the retro, but 240 is the full year's entitlement for cumulative preferred shareholders. How do we know? That's the number that we were given in the data in the question. 40,000 preferred shares, cumulative, outstanding. They're entitled to a dividend of $6 a year, or 240,000. Well, we had more than enough after we cleared off the retro to pay the current 2014 entitlement. So we paid those guys 645,000 of the 690. So now the residual, or the rest, goes to the common shareholders. So you can see in this case, part A, the preferred shareholders got a dividend of $960, but the common shareholders only got in total, over that 4-year period, a dividend of $90,000. But the preferred shareholders got much more. Over the 4-year period, they got $960. So that's why you see that holding cumulative preferred shares is more lucrative for preferred shareholders, but not as nice for common shareholders because they don't get as much. Now, that handles cumulative preferred shares. What if we go to the B part now? We want to repeat part A, but now assume that the preferred shares are non-cumulative. And when they're non-cumulative, that means no back payments. And that means no retro. No retro payment. So that means the same thing. There's no back payments, meaning no retro. So now, if we declare 285, preferred shareholders get their regular entitlement, which is 240. That's 40,000, right? So we're still working with this information. The annual entitlement is 240,000. That hasn't changed, right? They still entitled to that. So I'm going to copy that and just paste it here so you know. Okay, their annual entitlement is still going to be 240,000. And again, we declared more than enough, so they're getting their full entitlement, and common get the rest. Now we only declare 50,000. There's no retro. Preferreds get 50,000, common get nothing. Notice we're not doing a retro calculation because with the preferred shares are non-cumulative, the only thing we know is that they get their dividend before common do. So they'll get this $50,000 payment. Common will get nothing. They'll get their $240,000 payment in 2011, and common will only get $45,000, and they'll get that payment before the common due. $25,000 is declared in 2013. So we give the preferred shareholders part of their $240,000 entitlement, which is $25,000. Common get nothing. And notice now, here's where the common shareholders do well, because now there's a big dividend paid out, $690,000. But notice the preferred shareholders still only get $240,000. That's their annual entitlement, right? That's their annual entitlement based on the data in the question. But they don't get any retro. Remember, there's no back payments and no retro on preferred shares that are non-cumulative. So now the common shareholders get a common share dividend of $450,000. So now you see that over a 4-year period, preferred shareholders only get $555,000, not $960,000 like they did when they had cumulative preferred shares. You also see that when the preferred shares are non-cumulative, the common stand a chance of getting more. They, in our problem, got $495 over 4 years. When they were cumulative, they only got $90. So you can see that if you're a preferred shareholder, it's much nicer to have cumulative preferreds. But if you're a common shareholder, it's better if any preferred shares that are out there are non-cumulative. So this concludes our study of dividend allocation when you have cumulative preferred shares. I hope you found the video helpful.